What's going on, you guys? This is a real quick live stream. Wanted to say hi and do a late night one, maybe for an hour and a half or so. So people are welcome to obviously join in. I'm actually dual streaming at the moment, so I'll be actually streaming here under Twitch for the main stream. I'm actually right off next to me. I have a phone. I'm actually streaming on Instagram as well too. The Instagram one, unfortunately for you guys that are joining at the moment, I won't be able to really answer a lot of questions exactly because I can't really see the screen. So I'm focusing on the actual monitor in front of me. So people that are asking questions on there, I will be replying to. So I'll reply the question, and then of course I'll answer it best I can. So people that are asking questions on the Instagram, unfortunately, I may not be able to see your question at the moment. But I'm going to sketch and just kind of draw a little bit. Just kind of ending out the evening for the night to draw out another character from the Turtles series. I did a Donatello iteration yesterday. I had the day before that I did a Leo piece. I wanted to do this one and then follow up with the Raphael piece. So yeah, late night. I'm here in California, so in LA at the moment it's 12 a.m. It's midnight, exactly midnight actually. But this I think gives a good opportunity for people that are international possibly join in because it can be earlier in the day for you guys. Here in the States, a lot of people are starting to probably turn in, go to bed. It's a school night. People are probably going to work the next day at home. So I figured it'd still be nice to kind of sketch a little bit because I was going to draw anyways. So as always, I'm going to draw live. And of course, hopefully everyone is doing well. 4:30 p.m. in Australia. Nice. Good evening over there. Morning over to you guys in the UK and Germany, Europe in general. DC Extreme asks, do you think Art Center will resume in-person classes in the winter term or fall maybe? So there's only one more term after summer, which is the fall term. There's no real winter term. The winter term essentially is the fall term. I have no idea. I think they were planning to. That was the initial mindset. An art center here based in Pasadena, California, the school that I teach at, have taught at, and I've been to when I was younger as a student. But the summertime is when they obviously went into online classes, and in the spring, when the whole quarantine started happening, I was still teaching at the time physically at the classes, and we had gone into online conversions, and it was all right. I don't always agree. I mean, not to say that I don't agree with the quarantine and the fact that people should have been indoors, but Art Center probably should have canceled the term, or if they were doing online, they should have done something to kind of support the students a little bit, especially in terms of like reimbursements or tuition and stuff like that. And as we went into the summer term, they charged the same prices essentially, which I don't think is very, very appropriate. But what else can you do? These students, some of them have to come back for the summer term because they have to require credits and stuff like that. But anyways, are they going to come back then in the fall term to come open up the school? I doubt it, honestly. I actually doubt it. And will I come back for that if it's online? No. What's that? And I don't think it's going to be any sort of live classes for any school here in the States because the States is blown up. Figuratively, but hopefully not literally. Some situations, I guess. questions over here. Just got the statements as well. Um, he's got the Sakura Pigma SB pen a few days ago. It's great. Yeah, Ivory 18. This is that Sakura Pigma pen, which I really favor. And this is the only pen again, like I said before, I've mentioned it, but I don't buy other pens except this one really off the shelf because this type of nib you can't replicate mechanically. So that's why I would only really purchase this one. And it's a great tool. Those of you that don't know, this is going to be Raphael. Mr. Sanchez is it's never too late to start drawing. Only limited. I think that's a reply to maybe a question from earlier. So yeah, absolutely. It's great to share your thoughts and personal experiences as well. Great to hear from you guys. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a question. I missed it from Dasher. Is it too late to start drawing even though we don't have any experience or anything? Absolutely. If it's an interest of yours, and if it's something that's fun for you, there's nothing that's ever too late, as long as it's not harmful in any way. And drawing actually can be a little bit harmful in terms of the whole physical element of it. Drawing is very quite demanding in terms of the physical endurance and stress it puts on your body. So when you begin to draw, actually there are a lot of things that I could recommend and advices towards what to be mindful of when you are drawing for long periods of time. And even though it may be fun and exciting, it's fun to create and tell stories, sitting there for hours on end, is not going to be very helpful for you. So again, like I said, be mindful. Where drawing and sitting for long periods of time can be very detrimental to your physical well-being, and I speak from experience. I'm sure many people here also have experienced that to some degree. But no, it's never too late. Never too late. Anybody says otherwise, don't listen to them. You should be following them. Ace Axstar asks, "Is it normal to draw slow when you are newer? When you are a newer artist trying to learn? I've noticed that I draw really slow, especially when drawing in pen with my marks. Were you like this ever?" Yeah. I wouldn't say I was necessarily like super quick when I first started drawing, and even then, I don't think that was really on my mindset at all. Of course, it's always nice to be confident, efficient, being able to finish things in a certain manner of time, especially when you're trying to hit deadlines for either classes or work. But if it's for yourself, I don't think you necessarily have to think about deadlines per se. It's nice to give yourself ones if you're working on like projects that are more kind of matching up to a professional environment. But if you're just having fun with sketching, don't be mindful of that part too much. Just focus more on the process of doing it and just enjoy doing that aspect of it, and find out what makes it really enjoyable for you. Really kind of pick apart what you can really start to focus on further, whether it needs to be fundamental or whether it's because you just like to do it fun. Um, but still, it's totally normal to draw slow, to draw fast. There is no normal in the situation. It's more in the sense of like what works for you in the moment, and are you able to then produce something of confidence and of course consistency as you are continuing to draw more and more and more. In the beginning, it's going to be a struggle because trying to get a familiar to the materials. You're trying to get a sense of like how you and what you want to draw. So of course, there's a lot of discovery, and some of those things take time because you don't know how to approach them sometimes. So in that situation, you have to give yourself a chance to just play around with it. And when you play, you lose track of time actually, right? Because it's fun to do and all that kind of stuff. So if you're overthinking and being mindful, like, oh, it got to be done within 10 minutes or 5 minutes, it's like, well, you're not really going to have fun at that point because now you're actually putting up some sort of stressful environment around you. So I wouldn't really start that way. But it's okay to mix that in as well too. Those kinds of moments where it's challenging, and where it can be, a bit more, I guess, in the moment to feel that sense of like being able to just produce, right? Did you learn all by yourself, or did you do some studies in art? Of course, absolutely. I went to the college that we were just talking about, the Art Center College in Pasadena, and I went there for the 4-year program. But even before Art Center, the college, I went to a 2-year program in graphic design, getting my associate's degree in graphic design, actually too. So my high school also was an art-driven magnet school, So you have to understand, ever since my young age, of even like back in like junior high, I was, um, not pushed. That's not the right word, but involved in a lot of extracurricular artistic activities that my parents actually gave me the chance to go experience. So I was given, again, like I said, a very proper environment to go do the things I wanted to do. Um, but definitely, I did train. At the same time, do I do I feel like some people can make it without that kind of, traditional educational training? Yeah, actually, I think so too. I know people that have made it that don't come from like a traditional, educational background, that they just were really into it and they stuck with that majority of their lives, and they were, faithful to it, driven by it, passionate into it, so they're able to make it. DC Extreme asks, how are you holding up these days? How do you keep yourself mentally in a good state now with the situation that is going on? Well, I mean, no matter what, you can't be a hermit and just hide away from all the current affairs of things that are going on, and in whatever means or ways you can actually even be a part of it and volunteer things. It's always a good thing as well. But you should never feel like you're having to force to be involved in that way if you don't necessarily feel fully comfortable to expose yourself and, obviously voice in that situation. Nobody should ever feel forced to do anything. But in the same ways, again, it's good to be informed, I think. But you don't want to be sucked into it where, whether it's like the news media and stuff like that, social media as well too, all the crazy stuff that happens on like Twitch, and people that just speak and blatantly just kind of say stuff without any regard, to personal space or, I guess, professionalism in a way. So again, I know it's hard to like stay away from those kind of things, but at the same time, I try to. Uh, but still, like I said, it is good to be current to the affairs, and I get a lot of that stuff from, friends that are involved and seeing what they're doing. And I'll, do a couple small things here. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, it is what it is, and I think there are good things that are happening. And if anything else, in terms of what I can say about it, is like life in general is, for me, has been, great so far in terms of more on the, working side, business side. In terms of like what's going on in the world, it's like, you can't deny the fact that the stuff that's happening is due time. So hopefully everything goes, in, well, it's not been going very smooth, but at the same time, hopefully it goes in the right direction of things. So yeah, only be optimistic and hopeful. People are going to be listening. The environment changes in a positive way. What questions I missed them before? Loopy, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. Devin asks, how many hours a day do you draw just for yourself? How many hours would you recommend for an art student to draw? Well, for me right now, let's see. Today I have drawn in class, so I'm teaching, but I'm still drawing. And those sessions run about 3 to 4 hours. I actually ran a 5 hour session today. I'm not drawing consistently for 5 hours. I'm doing feedback and lecture. Maybe about an hour and a half of that was a lecture and a demo. That was about an hour and a half, 2 hours of drawing total, because I'm doing overlapping drawings on top of student work as well. And then, of course, now where I'm probably going to draw for another hour and a half, 2 hours. So in a day, I've drawn maybe 3 hours, 4 hours total. Now, that's just because I want to. It's not some sort of set over time of wanting to just draw and in some sort of like mandated thought of like forcing myself to be. It's because I want to. Um, so in that sense, hopefully you can put yourself in a mindset where it's not to say that you have to like set up this ritual and ceremony of thought of like, okay, now I can start drawing now. And you've gone through all the rhythms of the day to kind of get your set in the mind and the mood where you should always be in the proper mindset to do so. And whatever opportunity to be able to draw, you will. Or to create, or whatever format and medium you play with. But for a student of art, if you're a full-time student, consider it like a full-time job, 40 hours a week. You think, oh man, that's a lot. But if you're a full-time student, that's all you should be doing. Now, 40 hours seems like a lot, but like I said, the average like art center student is pulling those kind of hours and more per week. So take that 40 hours and break it down in per days. I got another question over here. Hopefully, the connection is smoothing out for you, Wasim. Um, I saw this reply about motivation. I didn't see the question. But yeah, you always want to draw. That's good, and so do I. And as long as you have that, then you'll be good. And you can break it up. It's like, some days you're training, drawing, practicing stuff, and you're going through like exercises and stuff like that, whatever method, whether it's like perspective or figure stuff or shape language. Then other days you just draw because you just want to draw the stuff you want to draw. Like right now I'm drawing a Ninja Turtle. How many times have I drawn a Ninja Turtle? Countless times, ever since I was a kid. Do I feel guilty in the fact that, I should be working on my actual work stuff? It's like, no, this is fun. I'm going to set time to do this because I also want to enjoy the things I'm going to create. You shouldn't ever feel guilty of breaking away from the things that you feel like you have to do and doing the things that you want to do. But balance is, of course, important. Can't avoid the work. When did I start drawing? I'm like literally 5 years old. Drawing again, stuff like this. Looking at comics, watching cartoons, drawing Ninja Turtles. Well, at first it was dinosaurs. I drew a lot of dinosaurs. Go up a little bit higher here. Kicking somebody up here. When is your next book available, and also will it be available internationally? So the question from DC Extreme is that the next book I am working on is the next volume of the Dynamic Bible. The first one was more of a general overview of my lectures, techniques, and dynamic sketching process of the class that I teach. And I have all my lecture notes collected for the first book. And it was, again, like I said, a big picture view of the entire class. It's just a few pages per section, but this next book focuses on specifics and has a lot more information per section, but it only covers like maybe 2 different subject matters per book section. So I'm going to actually do several books, one book a year essentially. It'll be quite a few books over the many number of years. But this first one, the first volume, that covers the exercises, but also goes into the subject matter of insect forms and cars, vehicles. And that will be out, I'm hoping, sometime this fall. And it will be available worldwide, especially like in Europe. It'll be easy to get. There'll be a distributor over there that'll be selling it because it's being put out through Superani. They're going to be the printers and help me distribute. So for me, all I had to do this time around was just draw and create the work. They're going to help me print and put it out there. Mr. Sanchez asks, I'm an 18-year-old artist. I'm trying to grow my account on Instagram, and soon I'm going to be teaching my first art class. Fantastic. Congratulations. Are there any tips you can share that can help me through it a bit? And is it all right if I use some of your methods as examples? Of course, you're more than welcome to use some of the methods as examples. And it's good to also let people know where you're getting it from. As I had many number of students over the 10 years of teaching, I've had students break away and formulate their own classes and run their own programs, and they always ask me for approval, right? Say that if they can actually do that, and of course I always say yes. And as long as they take it in a direction where they're interpreting it for themselves and they're able to give credit where credit is due, but not to me, but to like where my mentor came from, where the techniques were coming from Art Center and my teacher. So they don't have to credit me, but as long as they credit people like my instructor, like Norm Sherman, that's what I would really only say. But beyond that, you're welcome to take it in whatever direction you want to, what makes best sense for your students, how you want to explain it. Stick to really your guts. The best advice I can give is don't imagine or think about what I or anybody wants to say. How would you want to explain it? How would you want to verbalize it? And right now, it's not going to come out the way you want to because you're just starting. But give yourself at least a year, and you'll start to find the right words and the verbal communication that best suits this communication, where it's clear enough for people to understand what you're talking about. In the beginning, it'll be shaky, but you know what? That's just for anything else. Just so stick with it. And if you're just having fun working with kids and working with people, that's all you really need, much like drawing. And as long as you just enjoy that path, eventually if you stick long enough with it, you become efficient, you become more confident. Well, so hopefully that answers your question a little bit. For people that are watching on Instagram right now, I do apologize. I'm not really looking at the screen on my phone. So all the questions are coming from my Twitch stream at the moment. So people can jump in there if you want to. It is free. It's live. So you can jump in there if you want to ask questions. On Instagram, unfortunately, I would not be able to reply to some of those. And there's a couple of you guys over there. So Again, just come on the Twitch stream and just look up my handle, Peterhanstyle. You'll find me on there if you want to, and of course, there's no obligation. There's Raph kicking a guy in the back. He's gonna be throwing his side, and the other one over here. There's gonna be a guy laying down in this direction. Kind of all just, confident, not even caring. This is an easy fight. Dragon, as I am 19, I started a workshop on heads and faces by the Andrew Loomis method. Still very much an amateur teacher, but I hope it gets better. Fantastic. Again, congratulations also. I think starting at a young age and learning, well, not learning, but also to be involved in either volunteering or working to teach and communicate and work with people is always a great experience. And it's not about how old you are, if you've been, a certain level of experience. So don't worry about that. The idea is that, whatever level of understanding that you have and how you use your studies, share with the people, because what it does is it gives them an idea as to like what they can do as well as what you've taken in a direction. So it's not about being a master of it just yet, but more of a sense of like I'm also here to learn with you guys. So there's an opportunity where you can teach and also be involved. You will learn 10 times more than what you would do just by yourself. And I would say being involved in teaching is a great thing because it trains, like the last question, going into the communication aspect of it. How you talk about the work, how you explain what you do, right? Because if I ask people like, how do you draw and how do you sketch, and what's your actual process, and people will sit there like trying to figure out, I just do what I do. This is just what I do every day, right? There's no other explanation. But then, if you want people to understand your methods of things, you got to be able to explain it step by step and really process it. MJ Soupy asks, is Raph your favorite? And he was when I was a younger person. I liked, of course, the badass and independent thinker kind of thing. But now that I've gotten a little bit more mature, I side more, actually, a little bit more to Donatello. He's kind of the more unpopular one a little bit. I don't know why that is. I actually really like him a lot. And the reason why is because when I was a younger student also, well, not student, but just a younger person, I used to play the arcade game, Turtles in Time, and the other one before, the Ninja Turtles arcade game. I used to play Donatello all the time. Because I love the way he moved and his animations and also the weapon that he has. I like the staff bow. But at first, as a young person, it was always Raph, of course. Especially when the 90s, when the live action movie came out. Oh my god. I was like maybe, was it 91 or something like this? So I was probably 12, 13 or something like that. And me and my friends used to reenact that movie all the time. Oh my god. I used to know it by heart, line for line. Aiken, my day's been great. Thank you. And how's it going, Mansa? Welcome to the stream. You guys are welcome to obviously talk to each other as much as you want. We have a Foot Clan member being chest in the back over here. We're going to put another guy over on this side. Now I come from also, not really the cartoons, but really from the comics from the original Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, where those turtles were actually really violent. So I have no qualms in drawing turtles injuring, let alone taking out the clan in a bit more of a violent way. And of course, what really made the turtles popular was the cartoon series. Toy Line came around, and of course the movie. The original comics, when they were all wearing the red bands, raw stuff. Nice. Got skewered in the head with one of those things. Destiny, I will be coloring it, yeah. And Kevin, welcome, man. Good to see you again here. What was the robot's name from the Future Comics? Haven't read it in a while. I had that toy too, back when he was actually in the actual cartoon series. I honestly cannot remember the name of that robot either, but he had a very specific design. It was all circles, a lot of rounded forms. I remember his color way very, very well. Again, I used to play with that toy all the time. I don't think his design changed that much from the comic to then the cartoon series. Man, yeah, he was a Linsky asks, I saw that you're supposed to have a workshop at the Idea Academy. Is it going to happen? And unfortunately, it is not. Because it was supposed to happen earlier in this year, around May or so. Idea Academy is international school, and I was invited to come out to do a workshop, and everything was planned up. We were all talking, but of course, the whole quarantine thing happened. And yeah, so unfortunately for this year, there's none traveling that I'm going to be doing to kind of do workshops or events internationally. But I'm hoping next year we'll pick it back up. And if you're based out there, I hope to see you. What do you think about the entertainment design program at Art Center? I will apply in the future. This is from Destiny Bub. I have a lot of thoughts on the entertainment design track at Art Center. Um, I won't obviously divulge, full hours on this topic, but what I will say simply is that it does have, obviously a great faculty system. They hire some great instructors to teach there under the department. And I think they do a much better job in terms of training the students on a professional level compared to maybe the illustration department. I'm not saying the illustration department is weak, but it does have certain advantage of being, more involved with professional artists that are out there. Like I kind of mentioned about the faculty. And yes, there is an entertainment track in the illustration department, which is what I normally teach under. But like I said, it's a very scattered, and the curriculum isn't really. I don't think it's as well built as it could be, and I think it has a lot of potential. But I also don't know why there's two different tracks at the Art Center school, where there should honestly really be just one. Entertainment design, and it has all those things put together. But this is also due to the history of how the entertainment design track started at Art Center. So you can't, obviously, they could go back and change it, but honestly, they're not going to. Still, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the illustration department is just one of the biggest, and they have so many students in there. It does give a lot more flexibility for people to kind of explore different things, where the entertainment track is a little bit more single track minded. I think it's getting better because they're having a bit more diversity in terms of like the type of industry you can work for, whatever the case is. But before, it was definitely a one-track mind kind of deal. Kind of did it their way or you don't. But again, I don't know the exact details of things, and I'm not going to say that I know everything about that department. I don't speak on their behalf, as I don't teach in the department. Like I said, based on my observation and people and students that have been in that department that come into my class, it seems like I said, faculty does seem strong. But there's always, plus and minuses, and some students have gone through that track have not been happy about it. They sold a good game, and by the time they got in there, they weren't really getting what they expected, unfortunately. And I'm not on the side of talking up Art Center as being one of the best places. I don't. Even though I've been teaching there for 10 years and I went there myself, I would never say any one school is the best place to go to. So the idea is about being able to explore and try to get a sense of it yourself. Try it. Let's see. Duvoy asks, how long have you been drawing since receiving instruction from your mentor? Well, I graduated in the fall or the winter of 2004. So I've been working since 2005 professionally. 10 years more. Reading any comics right now? Sorry, I missed that question again. That you're excited about? At the moment, not right now. I'm actually collecting a lot of old comics. So like Silver Age comics, and mostly for the artwork, not really for the story, unfortunately. I just like collecting great, artists and cover pieces and stuff like that. So I've been going around collecting old vintage comics again. Old Jack Kirby pieces, or John Buscema, or anyone else that I really like. Barry Winston Smith is someone I also like too. So a lot of artists that I'm collecting for their artwork nowadays. But I will be watercoloring this. I'm gonna put another guy below here. Maybe, I don't know. 1, 2, 3 reads a triangle form, but I thought about putting a guy underneath here. Just kind of break up that. I don't think I will. I'll leave that out for now. Let me just kind of push some of the darks, and we'll maybe go into some watercolor here. Bit, welcome. Just stopping by this. Just wanted to say I saw one of your talks a while back, and it really inspired me to start drawing. Fantastic. I hope you still are. Dragon also asks, is it possible as a medium skilled artist to get the level to be able to apply for a job at Disney Pixar in only 1 or 2 years? Well, I have no direct answer for that. I have no idea. And I don't think anybody will be able to give you an answer for that, because it's all determined on the individual. So, is it possible? Sure, anything is possible. If someone is, I guess, naturally skilled enough and works extremely hard, and has all the right opportunities and the right connections and all the luck in their cards, yeah, it's possible, you know, but it's going to be very difficult to do so. What's more realistic? I think, again, like I said, most students who are going through that whole 3 to 4 year program is what's more likely. But even then, that's no guarantee either. You know, just because you go to school or train for a certain number of years, they're not going to just hand you a job, right? So some people work for a very long time, decades almost, sometimes too. Um, you know, after I graduated high school, I went to a 2 year college and then I went to art center. I was in school for a total of 6 years, you know, before I started working. So if you're asking, like, if I were able to get a job as a medium level artist, which I may have been at art center, would I have been able to get a work, you know, after being at that place for a year or two? No, I wouldn't have, because I also wanted to go to Pixar. I applied for Pixar after art center. And you know what? I didn't get it. That's the way it is. But despite that, will you stick with it? And despite, even if it takes you, you know, well, even if it does take you more than 2 years, will you keep doing it? It's about intersecting forms. I find it hard to understand which form should overlap the other one. Cylinders intersecting a box versus a box intersecting a cylinder, starting from the same underdrawn structure. Well, if it's the same underdrawn structure, there's only going to be one possible type of connection where it is sitting on top of each other. I mean, it can vary to some degree, but it's all very situational based on the camera and based on the positioning of the forms. In some situations, it'll be just one answer. But in this situation also, I would recommend you build it or look for examples of it as a physical thing to see how and what actually happens. You can assume and you can try to estimate, but it's still just an estimation. And so I think you, especially as you're training on your own, it's better that you go find the answers by looking for the actual observation of something. If you know a little bit of 3D, like SketchUp or something like that, build it. In my students in my classes, some of them were using like CAD models, you know. If you know ZBrush, you can use that too. If not, you can look at furniture. Look at Japanese furniture, carpentry. You get some really amazing examples of shape composite or combinations. Let's see, JD Draws. I was accepted to the entertainment track last month, and last week I declined their offer. I think I made the right choice, but I do wonder. Well, I am not going to say that you made the right choice or the wrong choice, but you made a choice. You're going to have to accept it as you move forward. And as long as you have no regrets going into the future, be good for you. So in that situation, you know, it's like, do you ever feel like you're going to have that moment in your life in the future? Like, now, maybe. Should I have? What would have been like, you know? And here's my answer to like places like art center or any school and college around the world. Like, should I go? Should I not? Especially ones that cost a lot of money, especially in the US. In Europe and like different countries, you know, colleges can be not as expensive, but here in the US they're exorbitant amount of money. But there's a huge risk no matter what. Still, time isn't a factor, so well, should I not? Should I? In that situation, I would. But it doesn't mean you have to finish. It means you can go and find out. Even if it's for a single term, 2 terms, figure out what the environment's like, bust your ass getting as much as you can out of school, leave. Get the extra, you know, advanced education, intermediate stuff somewhere else. Save the money from that. But you can maybe afford a single term, 2 terms. Even though it sounds like it's still a lot of money, I mean, compared to the entire 4 year program, you're saving a lot more. But again, like I said, you don't have to finish. The degree of something doesn't mean squat. You go to a job interview. MJ Soupy, is you going to start using the lessons from Drawbox? Have you heard about it and maybe recommended? Yeah, I would. And people ask about that one all the time, and it's because, well, he was a student of mine. So, and he was the one that actually, you know, asked me for approval to see if he can do that thing. And he started it on Reddit, I believe. And he's gone off on his own and done his own website, and I gave him the same kind of like advice by saying, as long as you take it in your direction, you give it credit where credit is due, your success, hopefully you'll make it. And I think he's been doing well, inspiring other people, and hope so, helping people like you or anybody else. I only hope for him to do, and anybody else who pursues that education route to do more. It's a good thing. How old is the entertainment design program at Art Center? Well, Scott Robertson started it, and this was back when, I think even when I was about to leave the school. This is probably in the mid to late 2000s. So not a super long time, but long enough to really understand, you know, how to go for it. Which books would you recommend for an animation art student? Also, would you recommend to build a social media art account in order to get more connections? First part of the question, any books I would recommend for animation? I would say focusing a lot on drawing fundamentals obviously helps a lot, and a lot of drawing fundamentals applied towards obviously figures and anatomy, but a lot of diverse subject matter. You know, as an animator, you might be able to, you might need to animate many different kind of things. So I think a lot of that would be very important. Being able to have a strong foundation of drawing, even if you move into like 3D animation, I think experiencing 2D animation is a really important thing. Which I believe when you train in animation, you will do 2D first. Um, a lot of it is also not even just a drawing aspect of it, but really being observant of your surroundings, being observant of people, knowing just the small subtle nuances of things that you kind of notice around you can pick up on. You got to be a little bit of an actor, you know, in a way too. You got to be able to have, you know, how to recreate certain moods and motions and, you know, expressive moments as well too. So I think that's a huge aspect to it. I don't think one book is going to really do anything. Also, would you recommend to build a social media account? Yeah, why not? Don't look for it as a place for, you know, where it's going to make you famous or something like that. I wouldn't really approach it that way. Don't put a lot of like your personal, you know, focus into it. Don't even read like, you know, questions. I mean, questions are fine, but don't reply to a bunch of stuff and just avoid it for that whole personal side of it because you're just going to spend so much time on it. Which I do also, so I can't necessarily say I don't. But at the same time, I don't necessarily engage a lot, whether it's in like DMs or, you know, a lot of comments or questions I get. Because it's not that I don't want to, but once you fall into that world, then it's like you're going deep into that rabbit hole. So and I think it's better to use other platforms if you want to connect to people and talk, whether it's like teaching or live streams like this, and let, you know, your artwork just speak for itself. But again, as a networking tool, here's my best way to basically explain it. Instagram or any kind of social media is a new business card. That's all it comes down to. It's a place to put up your work and your current stuff and how you show interests, areas of how you train, the work that you've actually been producing currently. And as you meet people, it's a great way to say, hey, this is my Instagram, what's yours? And you can share each other connections. Business cards these days, I mean, it's still obviously valid, but it's not the same kind of experience. I would say using social media to that way of networking can be a very good thing. Let's see, I heard some companies recruit students during the art center graduations. It can happen. It doesn't happen all the time. Um, it was a little bit rough this last graduation because it was all online, and it was kind of a disaster in my opinion. But I hope things can get remedied for the end of the year. Which again, I think it's not really going to happen. I think people are going to go online again for this grad show, which really wasn't helping the students at all. I think this current year's graduates and students, unfortunately, not to the fault of Art Center, but this is just the facts of what's happening around the world. They got screwed. What do you think one should focus on when drawing from references? Don't copy it. Try to find out what you're extracting from it. Is it the proportion? Is it the camera? Is it the pose? Is it anatomy? Is it, you know, the primitive shapes? Look for something more specific as to like what you're trying to, you know, extract from. Interpret it. The idea is, what can I use that for? What kind of inspiration can I get from it? So don't copy the image. Now I'm not saying you can't copy either. It's a great training and something I've done all the time as a student as well. But having more specific thoughts and plans or strategy as to what you're using the reference for, it'll make you more selective as to what reference you actually want to use in the first place. You can't just choose like random images because you think it just looks nice. Why does it look nice? Question it, you know, give yourself answers and figure out what it is you're trying to get from it. A couple of the questions: do you have days where you feel like all your drawings suck? Do you just ignore it and keep going, or like what advice do you give for people that struggle with that? And at the moment, I don't have those thoughts. I don't have those moments. Even if the drawings are not perfect, and I will very much say that all my drawings are never perfect. There are always mistakes everywhere. They don't come out exactly the way I think I would like to have them, but at the same time, that doesn't bother me because in a lot of ways, it can be even better. So expectation is not really it. It's more of a sense of an idea. I have an idea as to what I want. I know the general, you know, concept of what's going to go on. But as I move, it's constantly alternating. It's morphing and changing as I'm drawing it. So there's no direct one picture in my head. I just have the idea, but that idea is something that can always be malleable. In that sense, again, I'm never disappointed because I actually find it just fun to do. So in that situation, yeah, I mean, can your drawing suck sometimes and can it suck all the time? Only if you think that way. But in certain drawings where you still feel like it failed, what can you also look at it for a positive light towards and how you can improve it? Not to say like this is I don't like this doesn't look good, I must be terrible at this stuff, but after you did that, what do you find positive about it? If you can't find it, then you got to continue retraining your thought process. Because in drawings that you feel like are terrible, there's always something about it that you can also pull from that could be useful that you'll consistently use. If you don't, then that's the question. So what do I then need to improve on fundamentally or something else wise, just so that I don't feel that drag. Now, did I feel that when I was younger? I did. Couple stuff up, throw it away, do it again. Sitting there drawing through stress, frustrated, angry, um, and that anger is what pushed me through. Honestly, when I was younger, and I will tell you, it wasn't the best way to work. But at the same time, I will also tell you that I learned and grew very fast. But there was a downside to it, a huge downside, which was the big burnouts. So would I recommend myself doing it again? Not the exact same way, but I wouldn't deny the fact that that extreme amount of like intensity didn't help. It did, but it also put a lot of strain on me. So I don't always recommend exactly going that direction of fighting through things, treating this like an actual battle. But at the same time, having that very kind of like driven mentality is a good thing as well. That competitive kind of feel of wanting to always up the game for yourself. Competing against yourself always is a tough battle, but still, it's that right balance, right? Still struggle with a lot with constructing my objects and figures correctly. What do you think is the best type of exercise to improve my drawing structures and perspective? So in that situation, I think drawing it very simply. If you haven't been drawing primitive forms, you're saying you're constructing, but I don't necessarily know what you mean in terms of what you're constructing at all. Are you constructing the skeleton or the muscles or the anatomy, or are you using primitive forms? And if you are, do you know how to draw those primitive forms well enough? Do you understand the proportions of the human body well? Also, are you able to measure it in ways that gives you accuracy? Um, so a lot of it is obviously the training towards the eye, and repetition is a huge aspect of it. But I think again, there's a lot of combination of things you could do, whether it's about drawing from certain references, but of course, taking classes and having someone show you. But if you're kind of doing it on your own, looking for methods and techniques that fit best for your thought process is to you have to explore it, research it. There is no one method that's going to give you an answer, but at the same time, you're going to have the curiosity to go look for it. And then at this end of it is also the fact that you're just going to draw it continuously. Um, but anyways, in that situation, drawing structure and perspective comes down to the idea of understanding the rules of perspective and then being able to construct through primitive forms. And if you don't know those well enough, then you'll need either the classes or the information in some way, and you have to continue to draw out the primitive shapes so you can plug them in into the anatomy afterwards. Good question, Panda. Welcome again. What's your opinion on forcing yourself to draw for a certain period of time every day and burn out? Don't do it. Uh, I'm not saying that I haven't done that, okay? And I am never going to say that one person should never experience it, but I would recommend against it because it's not healthy. It can be physically detrimental. It can be mentally also a strain. It will drag on you on very other aspects of your life, and the burnout is not just in the feel of how you draw, but also the feel towards yourself. And I don't think it's very healthy minded, because I would say that those are the things I went through personally also. I put a lot of strain and intensity and, like I said, anger within the work. And so I treated the pen, like as if they were my enemy. So I fought against it constantly. But 9 times out of 10, it always won, beat me. And then I would force to draw more and more and more. I spent 8 to 7 hours, or I'm sorry, 7 to 8 hours drawing all day, and then I would just burn out. My hand would hurt. I'd have neck pains. And I wouldn't really walk away with any sort of positive feeling, like I actually accomplished anything. At the same time, I felt like I was, making that roll towards getting more control. But that was it. It was just illusion that I really wanted a lot of control of the things I was doing, but it doesn't really work that way. But anyways, again, like I said, I'm not gonna say that you shouldn't experience that, because the only and I understand that people are trying to safeguard people, like, oh, don't do what I did. But I think people should do what they feel like they need to be doing, or what other people have gone against what they say. If I say don't do this, try it. Because you're never really gonna know until you do it yourself. And I can give as many recommendations as possible, but that was my experience. And that's not gonna be what you're gonna go through. You might actually have a very good experience if you really force and push in a direction that kind of gets you on that roll, and it might have a lot of positive outlet. But then I think, based on my experience, there were also a lot of detriments to it. But I'm not going to protect you for it. So if anything, see what happens. How would you recommend how to render? Would you recommend the How to Render book for Scott Robertson? Sure, I would recommend any book from Scott Robertson. I think his stuff is great. It's a bit too technical. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for people that are just beginning. But if you have a certain level of experience, I think it'd be a really fun thing to look at. So any sort of book that has information in there, if you can extract it and know how to use it, then not. But I would say that I wouldn't necessarily look at it as like one, go-to-all kind of book, which I'm sure that's not the case. And like I said, if it makes sense to you, if it works. Thank you, Sarah Tam. Appreciate that. New Void, have you ever sketched with Kim Jong-un? How do you feel about his work? Yeah, I have, yeah. We've gotten together for dinners and stuff like that every time he visits the U.S. and he's a very humble, nice guy. I love drawing with him. He's incredibly humble. Like I said, he's intelligent but also very childlike. Right word. He just finds a lot of things just interesting, curious, funny, and light humor and dark humor. Based on his work, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But he's great to be by because he's also incredibly intelligent, hyper focused, always in the mood to draw. And so am I. So I'll always sit there and just kind of sketch, and stuff is prolific. I was far better than I will. But that doesn't mean I'm not striving to be stronger. I don't want to be Kim Jong-il, but I would definitely move in a direction to try to be better. It may never happen, but that doesn't mean you can't have a goal to try to elevate yourself, that you see this kind of competition. And again, like I said, I can also understand that that sort of level of attainment may never happen because that's who he is. But again, like I said, it's like I'm not looking at his work by saying like I need to have his techniques or his type of line or his type of like ideas, and that's not really it. It's just more I love his intensity. I love the immense amount of dedication, and that's really what I feed from more. Not about his techniques and not about how he draws and what he uses or anything else. I don't really honestly care about that. I like being around the energy of people. So guys like him or Carl Kapinski or anybody else that's like that, they're just really amazing people to be around. Because they're always in that state of wanting to create. Other guys like Aaron Blaze I like being around too, and he's also one of those same kind of guys that's just always on that. He's on the game constantly. Sorry, I need to skip through a little bit here. I know there's a lot of like comments I'm missing out. I'm reading all the questions in the moment. So, Art of Pancakes is asking, is using references cheating? If I use references in my drawing are good, but if I try to draw from the imagination, they turn out bad. This is not cheating. Simple as that. There's no other explanation you need to tell. If you need to use the references, use them. At the same time, you should also draw from the imagination. But if you need the references, use them. It is not cheating. When did you get serious about drawing? Did you get a job straight out of college? I did not. I got work after 6 months after graduating. I sat there, actually went back to art center classes after I graduated. I couldn't find work. So I didn't get a job straight out of the gate. It took me some time, hustling, making connections, continually still, producing work, and it it was a bit of a worry at the moment. When did I get serious about it though? I mean, it's a young age. Not to say that I was seriously considering a career and stuff like that when I was young, but I was super dedicated to it because I just love to do it. Nobody forced me to. I was just set in that right environment. I just had the right mentality, I guess, and the right interest level based on situation of the individual. Now, which professors would you recommend taking at Art Center? I mean, Will Weston is definitely still one of the guys I like to interact with and chat with and have lunch together and talk about methods and techniques. And I had dinner with him at his house a couple months ago before the whole quarantine happened. And it was great to have just hang out with him and his family, other instructors, chat about art and design and classes and teaching. Very informative, but also a really great guy, awesome teacher. So Will Weston is definitely one I would highly recommend. There's one. He's kind of getting older now, and if you can get him now at the moment, you would. Gary Meyer. I bought your dynamic Bible, and I'm wondering if you have a paper that you would recommend for pen, fine liner drawings. Printed paper seems to work, but not sure. Printed paper is fine. Just use that. Don't worry about trying to get like this high-end sketchbook and spending money on that. Just use copy paper, and for the moment, mix from felt tip pen liners, but also the ballpoint pen. So use the pigment liners and felt tip pens for like the actual drawings of like studies, references, or observation. The actual subject matter. For the exercises of like lines and ellipses, use your ballpoint pen. Do I plan to do any dynamic Bible ebooks at the moment? No. So going through, Ezra Locke, welcome. First time joining the live stream. Wanted to say how helpful your advice is. Have only just started drawing, but your work is a great inspiration. Cool, thank you. Currently also working through a Dropbox. Great. If you interact with them, tell them I said hi. Are you planning on releasing, or if you are working with them, are you planning on releasing any more of your dynamic Bible books? The next volume will be out in the fall time. That'll be printed by Superani, so it'll be more readily available. The original book at the moment is still in flux as to whether or not I will go back and reprint a lot of stuff. If I do, I will try to make the cost cheaper by making it of a lower grade paper, honestly, and I will try to find a way to afford that. I'll be streaming for about another. How long am I going right now? On for 1 minute, so probably about another hour at the most. I'm gonna do some watercolor as well. A beginner art specialist in art, like focusing on doing environmental portraits. It's more based on interest for you. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. What do you want to do? Now you can take inspiration from others, right, and kind of get guidance of interest or get recommendations like, hey, what are you taking? What should I take? You know, is there something I've been exposed to that you can try? So you know, being open to explore things is great. You can find ways to bridge multiple fundamentals in different areas of discipline. But at the end of it, you can also focus on the things that you just find very fascinating and curious. And then spend the time to really focus on that as much as you can. There is no right or wrong answer there. Destiny, you found the job through connections basically. Are you going to stream more later on? In the future, I will. I usually try to stream once a week now. I used to do twice a week, but now it's just once a week at the moment. It kind of fluctuates what day it is, honestly, based on the moments when I'm free. Or typically, I don't really like to stream super late like this, but I will if I'm gonna draw anyways. But yeah, it was not really a connection, but it was more in the sense that a bit of luck and timing and putting my work out there. If somebody was able to see it, show it, and it was a bit of connection, but it was also a bit of timing. You can't rely on that as a thing that's going to give you the connection, luck and timing, because you just sit there waiting for something to happen and something's going to happen. So you got to be proactive, take the initiative on things. You know where to shade. Sometimes when I shade, I end up losing the form of the original sketch and it doesn't look clean. Just think about what direction the light's coming from, right? Simple light connections, top down, whatever direction it's coming from, and be able to just group your shadows using lines to group them together and just fill those areas. Understand the differences between the soft edges and hard edges. Understanding what a form shadow to a cast shadow is, how bounce lights will work, and observation is going to be key. So setting up your own little still life and little light systems and just drawing from that can be very, very helpful. Costs nothing to set up your own still life systems, but then you got to think about how you set it up. What kind of image do you actually want to draw? So you have to then lay out that image. Cool. Finally cut it to the chat. How do you draw so confidently with pen straight off? With no shapes to plan the piece out, I get really shy with pen. Well, it's okay to be shy with it in the beginning because you're still trying to get familiar. But for me, you have to understand this is again a compression of 15 plus years, into a single action of moving a drawing. So if you're asking like, how do I get here? I only have like a year or two to work on this, and I want to get to what you're doing. Like, I'm sorry. Well, if you're gonna try to compact 15 years of work in 2 years, good luck. I don't think it's gonna happen. But that's the problem right now with many people, how they see education and art. They think they can just kind of pick up and plug it in and see that, oh, I took one class, I should be able to understand that now. Well, that's not going to happen unless you're some type of like what do they call those? I forgot the word again. Either way, someone who's able to like obviously just naturally be gifted on certain things. But at the same time, like I said, it's just more the time spent on this. But it's not to say that I don't construct. It's not to say that I don't plan shapes. I do. It's that you can't see it. What YouTube channels or courses would you recommend to learn basics? I think Aaron Blaze runs some good channel stuff. Obviously, Proco is one that everyone kind of knows about. But is there any other art, mediums or platforms? I mean, CGMA does a couple of small little tutorials. We'll put up the 30-minute ones here and there. But honestly, I don't really follow any kind of like channels on YouTube for art instruction. Honestly, if I knew more of, I would definitely share it. But unfortunately, I just really haven't gotten into it too much. Savant, thank you. That's the word. Appreciate that. Each ran lines on the iPad Pro. Sure. Savant, prodigy, both. Yeah. Yeah, if you're one of those people, which I am not, things take time for me to actually get more comfortable towards. I have crap memory. It takes me a long time to like remember how to do stuff, especially when it comes to like memorizing steps. I'm terrible at that, which is why I was kind of like really bad at taking tests in school. I did okay in high school and middle school and stuff like that, but whenever it came to tests, I always bombed them. I always like locked up. I could never remember where like the answers were or how and what I studied from like the night before. I would cram and cram, and even then it would just not retain. I don't learn that way. I learn by action, by doing. I can learn by watching when somebody's doing something physical. I can actually learn from that. But in many situations, I have to actually do it. How do you start drawing from the imagination without using references? Well, you draw from as many references as you can in the beginning. You got to draw it hundreds, if not thousands, of times. But once you get that well depth of visual information or visual library is what we call it, the amount of things that you've experienced, seen, interacted with, um, have interest towards, are the things that you'll be pulling from your well to create from imagination. Now, again, some people are more naturally wired to like automatically just spill ideas and draw from the imagination, even if they have a lack of minimal things they've seen. They're able to just kind of create weird, crazy stuff, ideas and concepts. But again, it's like if you're not that way, I wasn't. I mean, I was able to create from the imagination, but a lot of the times it was always driven by the things I would always have seen from before. So it's a lot of exposure, tons of repetition, deep well. I want to go to the watercolor here. Let's see, watercolor set. Do I like water or oil or acrylics? Oils. I hate acrylics. It's not to say that acrylics are a bad medium. I think people can do some amazing stuff on it. But I can't stand the way it smells. I don't like the way it feels. This doesn't come out with the saturation that I like. It's all very chalky to me. But again, some people do really amazing work on it. I did a whole rendering class using nothing but acrylics at Art Center. I could not stand it. I like oils better. But oils takes a lot of time to set up and clean up and all that kind of stuff, so that can be one of the problems. Let me get a napkin real fast. Just for cleaning the brush. I'm just going to use watercolor here. Do I know any prodigies? I mean, I guess Kim Jong-gi could be labeled one of those, right? What I understand, the guy can pretty much just draw like crazy ever since he was just a young kid. I mean, I used to draw when I was a kid also, but obviously, just like everyone else, just a kid. Do you have any advice on learning how to visualize forms and shapes in your mind? I did notice that by drawing the basic forms that I can visualize them slightly, but it's not very clear at all. Well, again, those primitive forms, especially the more simple ones, boxes, cylinders, pyramids, are you able to turn those in space in your head? First, you got to be able to just draw those shapes repeatedly, right, to understand how to construct them. And then from there, will you be able to then visualize that and draw it straight out from your head? Now, those shapes are the best to start with because they're the simplest ones and they're easy to understand what they look like. And so you should be able to just visualize, what they might feel from a different angle of view. Now, if I said turn a zebra's head in space, you're gonna be like, well, I don't know what a zebra's head looks like. Well, of course, you haven't studied it. But if you approach the zebra's head with the simplicity of those primitive forms, you might be able to problem solve it a bit better. But in the beginning, yeah, you do need to understand those primitive forms. But best way to do it is to, again, repeat as much as possible. Train in the sense of like being able to first observe, look at it actually, right? Understand what it actually looks like physically in front of you. So like actual boxes or shapes that are similar to those primitive forms. Set them up again. Again, the still life, as I mentioned earlier, is another part of that. Observe it, and so that way, as you get more familiar to it, you're able to continue to build it. Do I know the teacher named Jonathan Hoekstra? Yeah, he was a former student as well too. My classes a couple times. Good guy. Taught at Art Center. I think he still teaches there. I'm not sure what he's like as an instructor. Like I said, that's not like I know him really that well either. But we run into each other every now and again. people out there that teach now and kind of even teach the same kind of things that I do. And pretty diverse crowd out there. I do know quite a bit of people. Not always on the level of, that maybe I would like to. Am I using watercolor paper right now? Not really. This is just a bit thicker, but it's not like cover stock, and this is not watercolor paper. So it does slightly buckle here and there. It feels more like hot press to me, and it's not like cold press. I prefer cold press, but I got the sketchbook in Austria, and I started using it, and it handles the watercolor okay. I don't mind it so much. I just keep using it. It seems to retain the saturation fairly well. Hot press tends to absorb the watercolor a lot. So it kind of like drops the saturations quite a bit. It's a little bit like tissue paper. If you overwork it on the surface, it can tear the paper and you get all these fibers and stuff like that. But art, I haven't had too much issues with it. Did you work at Blizzard or Riot Games before? No, I worked at another game company that worked on also MMOs, but it was called Tryon. It wasn't as big as like Riot or Blizzard, but they had a large amount of capital and money developing their own games, and they're still around today. And their games are kind of whatever, honestly. Even the game that I worked on with them it was so. But it was a good experience, and it was nice to be at a company learning on the job. That was the last studio I was at. This is back in like from 2008 to about 2013. Oh, I'm sorry, 2010 to 2013. I worked at that company for about 3 years. After that studio, I went to Sony in San Diego for about a year, and I went independent on my own after that. Have I met Steve Houston? Yeah, I have. I visited his studio, an art studio, back when I was a student at Art Center because he used to teach there. The guy's an amazing painter. Love his work. Never actually had any classes with him, unfortunately, but he always seemed like a really cool guy. Life experiences do you derive most from to influence your art? Travel and people. Traveling and people. As you travel, you meet people. Meet all kinds of people. I've traveled all around the world, met people from all walks of life. For me, I pull a lot from nature. That's why I love being in nature, being outdoors, whether I'm hiking or going on safari on things, and road trips to like national parks and observing the wild. I really, really enjoy observing it from afar. And I'll still go to zoos because, like I said, and whatever the level of argument is about zoos, still for me as an artist, I pull a lot inspiration because I'm able to see animals up close that you would not be able to see in nature. I do also agree in the fact that zoos aren't really necessary, but at the same time, it's mostly for entertainment these days. But I think some zoos can do really good work, especially when it comes to conservation work and assisting animals that are not necessarily going to be able to survive in the wild. Anyways, I'm going in a direction that we shouldn't talk about. Let's go back to the questions. But yeah, traveling is a huge part of it. How do you get better at ink, art, and brush pens? You just use them. Like, yeah, of course you can take lessons and plans and techniques of how to draw, but at the end of the day, like anything, any skill-based stuff, anything you're curious about, you gotta just play with it. And the more you play with it, you get familiar with how you would use it. You can't necessarily look for an answer by someone telling you, oh, this is how you use the medium. You can look at that stuff and get inspired by it, and it can help, but it's not the answer. It's just one avenue of a route of advice of what you can do with that medium. In a lot of situations, a lot of it is also derived from self-exploration and discovery. So just play with them. Aiden, what's going on? I was one of your DS1 students from CGMA. Just wanted to drop by to say hi. Also, welcome. And hey, appreciate that, man. Thank you. Stop Mike and Kaden. Who are your biggest artists that inspire you? At the moment, it's still people like Katsuya Terada. Terada is still one of the influences that I had when I was an art center student. I used to look at his work the most. I still look at a lot of like the American illustrators from like the 1800s, and also a lot of European artists as well too. A lot of comic arts is my main inspiration. I don't really look at a lot of concept people. I look at mostly graphic novelists. I think graphic novelists and are some of the best draftsmen, honestly. Then of course illustrators as well too, because I like draftsmanship. I love design thinking, and that's what I mostly worked in. But when it comes to like my drawing inspiration, it mostly comes from illustrators and comic artists. Talking about zoos, did you travel to Vienna to the zoo, Schönbrunn, and Vienna was from there? I haven't been to Vienna just yet. I've always wanted to because I've been to Austria a couple of times, but I didn't get a chance to go to Vienna just yet. And I really would like to because there's also apparently what I understand is a really nice natural history museum up there. So I would love to see that. There's two places I always like to go to: either the Natural History Museum, any sort of museum, honestly, and of course the zoo. You would drawing from life be very different compared to drawing from the computer? Absolutely, huge differences. Both can gain, both have downsides too. But drawing from life has huge benefits. Uh, One of them is the experience, the extra sensory experiences of being there, right? Not just the sights of looking for something that's specific, because when you're looking at images online, you're looking for something specific and going through dozens and dozens of images to find the exact image you're going for. But when you're at the zoo, you just let life give you information, and you either pick up on it or you don't. And when you see something that can be super inspirational, it can be something based on what you saw, maybe not what you expected, because maybe you go to the zoo to look for animals, but maybe it's like, oh, maybe you saw this interesting character of a person, or interesting development of like how the environment or how the landscape and possibly even like the design of the zoo gave you some like design directions for inner space and stuff, right? Maybe it's like the layout, graphical things, color sets, the natural environment itself, and of course the animals too. But it's that extra sensory as well that builds the memory of it. Like, not just how you see it, but then the sounds you hear, the smells you have, the things that you'll eat, and the experience of working with friends and having a good time being out on vacation. Those extra experiences add to the value of being out there, and it makes it more memorable. So observational drawing has a lot of gains, not just about going there to see something exactly what you want to go see. Out there just to be inspired by whatever you can maybe potentially find through spontaneity. Live, right? When I see an amazing portrait, I want to draw heads. I want to see a good landscape. I want to draw. I want to go out and paint. Same thing goes for the various mediums. I'm afraid I'm spreading myself too thin and not focused enough. Did you ever struggle with this, knowing what to excel in? To some degree, within a technique, it was mostly about drawing for me. As much as I did paint at Art Center, using either acrylics and oils and gouache and all that stuff, I obviously exposed myself to as much as I could, but still it didn't as deeply as drawing ever did. So within a technique, I knew what I really wanted to focus on. But in terms of like where would it apply, yeah, I would jump around. Like, oh, I always wanted to do comics at first, but then I jumped to like games, and I always wanted to do animation. And so there were a lot of different areas, and again, it fluctuated to like characters and to like creatures and different prop designs. But I think at the end of it, when you're a student coming out, it is important that you have a primary direction. But it's not saying that you can't work within those multiple various fields, but you got to build the experience and have those opportunities as you then go on the job. Right? In a school, you want to excel in something, but the fundamentals will be be multi bridging in terms of where it can apply into the future. But once you get the opportunity, you can jump on those stuff, and there's time. You don't have to get all that stuff now. People are always looking for ways to like get everything under the belt as soon as possible. I don't think that's the best way to approach it. Do you think your skill set would transfer well to 2D animation? Well, I have done 2D animation actually, not professionally, but I took classes on it before Art Center days. So in my times at the school before Art Center, I actually took a few classes that were very explorative, and some things were like on photography or like in film, and one of the classes available was actually on animation. So I actually took a class on 2D animation, so I could learn how to like not only 2D animate, but also like scan them and like put them into the video producers and editing stuff, and did all of that. Made little shorts. It was fun, but it was hard. But yeah, the drawing fundamental is directly applied towards it. I'm gonna readjust all the values here later on. Doing general coverage at the moment. How long did you practice before you were able to rotate those basic shapes in your head? I don't think there was any direct instant of a moment where I all of a sudden thought like, hey, now I know what to do with this. I don't think anybody really has that. It's a gradual thing. You know? So when you realize it tends to be over a passage of time, and you're like, hey, this is actually easier now than it was before. It's not like you'll wake up one day and be like, I now know how to draw these forms in different angles of views. It just doesn't work that way. It does, and maybe you bump your head and all of a sudden your brain's able to process it really well. It's a combination of slow process and exposure to the information and training, and eventually, you start to have a not only just confidence towards it, you're able to, ease into it faster. You're able to be more consistent with it. You're not struggling as much, and those are signs that you're pretty much at that point. What are some key fundamentals to learn? I mean, to start with, if you're just a beginner artist, basic drawing 101 is also good too. Getting used to some of the materials. Learn about dry mediums, ink mediums, water mediums. Whatever mediums are interesting to you. Try sculpture if you want to, but just expose yourself to multiple different things. The idea is that when you begin as an artist, you have the freedom to move around and try a bunch of stuff. Don't feel locked in on one thing. Later on, when you become more of a senior level, you gotta be more, specific and directed towards. When you're just beginning, don't overthink it. Start drawing. Best method, again, same thing I just said. You just begin. There's nobody to tell you any wise, any way, or how you would begin on stuff. You just want to do it, right? So it's like, people ask me, but there's got to be some books I can look at, some videos and tutorials. No, you don't want to categorize anything. Start because you want to. Look at something. Oh, that's fascinating. I always wanted to draw this, or I like that, animal. Or I like this, portrait of the person, or I think that thing of landscape is interesting too. Let your mind, your curiosity, let your passion of something just attract you, and just try to explore it. It's not about how well you draw it or not. It's just one sense of like you find something visually interesting, or you want to say something, and you will use whatever medium you want to express that. The best way to begin is just to start right off, right? Once you start to kind of delve deeper into that, then you can look for systems and techniques and classes and stuff like this. But if you're just starting, don't look at that kind of stuff. It's too much out there. To process and filter all that, it's just overwhelming, and it's in a lot of ways, it's actually defeats and kills your enthusiasm for it. It's gotta start with just because you want to do it, not because some instructor or some school or some class or some method told you to do something. If you're looking for someone to tell you what to do, that's not the right way to approach life in general. When doing master copies, is it better to just analyze and copy, or to interpret and adapt to your own style? Both, because we did both. We would do exact master copies, one to one. A master copy would be looking at a master artist from like maybe a classical period, and we would do direct copies from them using the actual materials, oils, or if it's a dry medium or whatever the case is. I've done a Caravaggio master copy, one to one copy. It was incredibly hard. It took me weeks to do. Learned a lot from it. What do you learn? How that artist composed it, how that artist balanced their light and values, how they use the medium. By replicating it, you can kind of work and re-engineer backwards to like what they're trying to go for. Then you plug and play the things you want to use. But you can also do interpretive versions where you're only focusing on things like composition. I only want to focus on the figure. I only want to focus on the lighting. Is rotating boxes easier than tilting them? Yeah. What's that? It is. Think about as if it's like a flat box, orthographic, and you just turn it around. Tilting it. Do you have any tips about cross-hatching? Follow the form. Follow the form. Don't know what that means? Look up the meaning of form itself. Shape is two-dimensional. Form is three-dimensional. Form can also then move into planes that have perspective. From there, if you have lines that give you the wireframe, or the lines that show you the internal three-dimensional structure of it, and every object may have some sort of cross line that shows you the wireframe. Think about maybe taking a can or a cup and put a rubber band around it. That is your cross contour line that shows you the three dimensions of that object. Hatch in that direction. It's the best way to begin on hatching. That foundation, it's been diverse. Play around with different sorts of hatching. Can I copy Renaissance artists with watercolor? People who have other mediums? Sure, why not? Because you can just study from the values, right? You can do master copies of a painting as a drawing. I push a bit into the darker values into here, separate some stuff. Here, let's push all this like down. Pop out or the torso more. Nice to have a lot of people in here interested in art. You know, you guys are just starting. You have a lot of questions about it. And that's the beauty of the stuff we have today with the internet, is that you have the opportunity to ask these kinds of questions where you can imagine 20 years ago when you're starting off, and where do you really turn to, you know, and what do you look at for answers about, I've always wanted to do art, I don't know where to begin, what do I look at, what do I start in? Is the change of dynamic of art in the world now, the ability to just reach out and connect to people. The people are willing to do, you know, obviously be engaged in this, to go out there and expose themselves a bit. It's a different world for sure. Beginning to be an artist. Cool, you know, it's nice stuff. I want to make sure the Instagram post is still going. I didn't check back on the phone for a while. I know there's a limitation of time on the Instagram, but for those of you that are on Instagram right now watching, I cannot answer questions for you guys at the moment because I'm mostly responding to the Twitch. So you're gonna go on Twitch and look at the live stream from my own Peterhanstyle, and you can ask a question there if you want to. But if you're on Instagram at the moment trying to ask a question, unfortunately, I've probably missed a bunch of them, so I do apologize. But I can't look at both at the same time. But if you have a question, jump on Twitch, free live stream there. I usually try to get on maybe once a week, since it's a bi-weekly thing. I would like to have been on more regularly, but these days with the amount of classes I'm teaching, multiple projects I got going on, it's a little bit tougher, so I do apologize. I know I promised it earlier on, but it is what it is. Going for about an hour and 18 minutes, so I'll probably be on for another 40 minutes, I would say. I'm going to finish this piece here. I'm only really going to watercolor paint Raphael here. I'm not going to do it with the soldiers because I really want to put it to the focus of him. I hope so, Petaplup. That's what I'm here for. You know, it's not to say that, you know, I'm trying to tell people what to do, but if there's anything here I can advise you on in whatever direction I can based on my level of experience, I will try to do so. If you're here just to show up and draw with me, I hope you guys are drawing. You're drawing a Ninja Turtle. Your own interpretation of them. They're fun to draw, you know. Increase the volume. I'm at max, so the microphone's up on top, but I'm kind of pointing down at the moment. As I'm drawing, I'm looking down. You guys increase volume on your side, try to do so, but there's nothing I can do right now at the moment. For someone who's never seen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, how do you differentiate between the turtles? Well, if you've never seen them, you wouldn't be able to, right? You don't know who the characters are. So what should you do? Get familiar to them. Watch the movie. Read the comics. If you're interested, you're gonna want to find out. I don't think you should have anybody tell you what they're. I mean, yeah, of course, you can share their interpretations of what the turtles are like, but I think you should find out on your own. The great thing about stuff like this is that experiencing it yourself is a huge part of that experience. So get out there and look at it. It's awesome. Turtles are great. No, hell no, not the Michael Bay ones. Look at the comics, the old stuff, and the cartoons are great. The original movie from the '90s was awesome. Michael Bay, oh, turtles were abominations. Oh, I mean, did you see Raphael in that movie? He was massive. That guy was like 8 feet tall. He was so big. How did you go about studying Katsuya Terada, the 1800 illustrators and other graphic novelists? Uh, Studying details of the full page of copying, just individual sketches and drawings, honestly. I love Katsuya Terada's old sketchbooks. He'd print out 1,000-page sketchbooks, and I would buy them and just look through them and draw some of the pieces that were in there. But for the illustrators, yeah, I would look at their drawings mostly, draw it from line to line. What's going on, Kenny? Welcome in, man. Long time no see, or a long time no talk to. You're doing well. Nice to have old students drop in every now and again. How do you manage the good level of water and paint with watercolor? Always a struggle. It is. It's a balancing act, and it's quite tough because I normally start wet on wet, really a lot of water in the beginning, layering, very thin layers of stuff. And then from there, I start to go a bit thicker with the paint, getting a bit more opaque if I can. But it's a very, it's a transparent medium, so no matter what, it's still transparent. But you can add a lot more pigment to get more saturation and stuff. But it does take time to get really familiar with the balance of it. Having good materials, having good paper does make a difference, though, I would tell you that. Awesome to hear, man. I hear Netflix is doing crazy cool stuff. Yeah, I have a lot of friends and people that are there at the moment. Sounds like it's been a great environment creatively. People, nice to hear that you've been doing well there. I think they moved Netflix to. Didn't they move them to the Burbank area or the Glendale? I thought there was a studio move or something. I don't know if you're a part of that, but I think it's the Netflix animation department from what would it be wise to do a course like Will Weston's if you need work on your forms? Would it be better to do dynamic sketching first? Well, Will does teach a lot of stuff that's similar to what dynamic sketching is. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking his class initially. You'll learn a lot. Vice versa, you can go dynamic sketching first or afterward. And either way, exposing yourself to both is going to be great. The West Hollywood and Vine and one in Burbank. Yeah, that's the one in Burbank I heard about. Okay. Thoughts of drawing what other artists drew, trying to copy what exactly they did. It's great, especially if you really like it. But then, why are you copying it? What are you trying to copy from? What do you want to extract from it? Is it to improve your understanding about form, proportion, figure, composition, color, lighting, all this stuff, mediums, a lot of different things. But try to figure out what it is you're trying to get from it. Don't just copy it for the sake of like, I just want to copy just to like lose myself in it and not think. I don't want to do that. You know what? Let's add a little bit of value to the soldiers in the background. Not like a heavy saturation, but just more of just a gray. Gray. Very light, low in opacity, a lot of water. Do I do private teaching? I do personal one-on-one mentorships online only, but I only do them one student a term, and it's all very much based on interview process. I don't just take in anybody. You have to interview for it, and it's for I think about it, but yeah, it's an 8-week system. Right now, I have one mentor student at the moment. It's been great working with him, but I only take people, like I said, after I've talked and engaged with the person that's wanting to do it, as to why they want to do it, how I can help them, what is it that you are trying to get out of it, then setting the actual plan and goals as to how you can follow it. Will you show me the discipline to do so? I don't want to just take anybody going to waste their time and waste my time. Yeah, Kenny, I'm still teaching. It's considered full-time hours, but still multiple places. I still teach at CDA, the Concept Design Academy at Pasadena. Still at CGMA. Art Center, I'm off right now. I don't know if I'll be back in the fall. Honestly, I don't even know if I'll be back at all. My own school, my own classes online have been doing really well. So they awesome so far. I might just stick with that. Make a lot better living with it. I was doing fine with everything else, but having control financially, but also control of the hours and control of doing all myself has been far better for me. I'm not really following the light system. I have a light direction, but I'm just kind of following local colors as to what this is. I didn't establish an underlay of warm or cool. Just natural light for local colors. Most people tend to kind of paint that way, and it's not the most appropriate, but I'm, not really a painter, so it's not really considered a painting. It's color to a drawing. How can you stay in the mood to draw all the time? Well, I mean, there's really nothing I can say other than the fact that that's all I can think about. And I think it has to be very, it's individually kind of grown. The level of interest, dedication, it comes a lot, I think, from your past and maybe your environment, how you grew up and what you've been exposed to, possibly you yourself and how you're wired, kind of support system, or even the people that you've been working with that give you that same kind of competition, but also inspiration as well. But for me, I have a never-ending level of interest to draw at every single moment. So if anybody would say, "Hey, let's draw," I was like, "I'm down." And what are your thoughts on digital drawing, painting? Sorry if you have to answer this again. No, I haven't answered it at all, honestly, and I have nothing against it. Drawing in things like Photoshop or the iPad Pro or whatever program is great. I started drawing digitally and painting digitally when I was a student in high school. This is back in like 1998 is when I started drawing digitally on big ass tablets. Uh, and so me and my friend would be in the library because the library at this high school would have the early edition of Photoshop, was like CS1, and a Wacom tablet that was the size of a table. And nobody else in the school used it because nobody was interested in using it. But me and my friend, we used to draw all the time, and we would use it all the time. So we would just kind of our own personal laptop, actual tablet that we would just use, sign out the stylus. That was my first, kind of exposure to it. And then I went to like the college after high school, getting my associate's degree, getting more exposure to digital, and then I was exposed to like different programs like Illustrator, different kind of like graphic design programs, of course more into Photoshop, and then Art Center came around, which we had to really use it a lot more. So I exposed myself to it very at a young age. I was maybe what, like 17, 18 when I was starting to use it a lot. And again, it was a very rudimentary version of it, but still, it was great. But I just played with it. Nobody was sitting there showing me how to use it. We just used it. Let's see. We have another question here. I was planning on using brush pens. Could it be used only by filling with water and dipping on ink, or ink is actually filled? You can actually fill with ink. You can buy brush pens off the shelf that have ink in it. I would start off maybe with the water-based inks, but I prefer the pigment-based inks myself. You can look up the differences through research if you'd like to. Best places to buy pens for myself is jetpens.com. No, crosshatch. Really late night, but who cares? Trying to extract piece of information. Glad you're here, man. High school, yeah. In high school, didn't even have edible pizza, let alone Wacom. Yeah, it was only one. It was a library. I don't know how they got it, but it was again gigantic, really big. And back at the time when I was in high school, me and my friend were really into like certain mangas and stuff. Artists like obviously Terada was one of them, and then of course Shiro Masamune Shiro was a huge inspiration also too. We used to look at his work constantly. All that Ghost in the Shell and Appleseed stuff. The next book, the Dynamic Bible, will be coming out probably by the midpoint of the fall, maybe August. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the summer, but it's going to be published and printed by Superani, so it'll be available internationally all over. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with all that fulfillment and distribution myself anymore. Pain in the butt. What was your approach, towards studying figures and anatomy? Was it fundamentals or you developed prior to joining Art Center? No, before Art Center, I was in that college, the two-year university. We did a little bit of figure drawing from there. A lot of it was just, drawing from references and images and stuff like that. Even at Art Center, we did a lot from copies of like anatomy books, muscle, bones. From there, before that, we were doing a lot of like just drawing from still life, basic forms and shapes, getting understanding perspective. Then we try to plug them into the figure drawing using certain techniques and methods. But of course, it comes back down to the observation. We did a lot of studies from looking at things, actual models, skeletal structures, plastic bones and skulls, all that kind of stuff. Do you watch anime and were you inspired from them? Absolutely. I was first getting into anime when I was in high school. So this is when I first went to high school was 1993. 94, I'm sorry, 94. Back then, anime was not readily available, okay? So everything was kind of bootlegged. You had them on like VHS. It was all like really scrambly and terrible image quality. But that's what we did, back in the time. I remember still watching things like, Kira and other like animes like Appleseed was one of them for sure. The Appleseed original movie. Oh my god, watched that one over and over again. And so we just like had these underground VHS tapes, and we all like trade and share them with each other. And then of course like all like the videotape and movie stores popped up in malls and stuff like that. They would start to sell like VHS tapes of those. They would import them. And of course the big game changer was Akira, actually. I was exposed to Akira when I was a very young person. This is back in like the early 90s or something like that. It changed my life because I was exposed to something that was so extreme at a very young age, and I didn't really know what I was looking at, but it was. And from there, when I got to high school, of course, yeah, mangas and animes became a bit more available. Now, I mean, I'm not seeking stuff. I'm not really watching anything at the moment. But if there's something on that's kind of like, gaining interest or momentum, or there's a quality to it, then yeah, I'll spend the time to watch it. I was super more into like movies back then instead of like shows. I didn't really watch series or OVAs. I liked movies. But now, the shows are getting a lot stronger and better. I don't really like fan service as much. I like it when they kind of pushed, animes and mangas back then, I think pushed it more in terms of the envelope, whether it's about animation technology or to the storytelling or to just the visceral, aspect of it. Nowadays, it's just kind of like. I decided I wanted to be a full-time artist at the age of 17, so I started self-teaching at that age. I never got any professional education in art. You're now 20. Do you think it's late to start taking classes and going to art college right now? No, you're still really young for that. I started art center at 24 years old. I'm sorry, 22 years old. 2 years before that. But I was in my early 20s also, but not 20. I was a couple years older than this. 20 is a great age to start. I think a lot of students these days are coming out of high school going to art center like 17, 18. I think that's too young, honestly. I think you should really expose yourself to life in general, travel a little bit, go to other kind of community colleges, other universities, get another degree if you want to, expose different kinds of education, then go to like a fully committed full-time art school, But right now, live and experience and gain and mature, get to know who you are and what you want. Only by living is really going to get it, not through education like a school system. But I understand sometimes like parents do and have all this pressure through other things of means of like timing, and all of a sudden you see all these other people like moving so quickly and you're like, oh man, am I too late now already? You're only 20. You'll be fine. Yeah, so Kenny over here started art center at 17. You graduated at 21 and you made it. You're working now. But I'm sure you had a lot of thoughts about your experience as you came to art center in the beginning about whether or not it's working for you, and I'm sure it was quite. And would you have succeeded even more if you had come in a little bit later? Possibly. There's no way to know. Have you started storyboarding for the next book for the blacksmith yet? I'm actually going to start that right now. It's June, going into July. I will be. I need to start writing it. I'm actually not going to storyboard it this time. I'm going to actually write more of it, and then I'll start up. Because I want to get the second book as far along as possible by the end of the year. Because I want to get the first half of that book installed in the first one. Because there's kind of a deal going on right now. We'll see if it actually pulls through. I'm not going to announce it just yet, but there are plans that are working. The second book will start up this year. First book is done. Actually, the printing, they just contacted me yesterday. The printing just finished. So I have to send in final payment, and then they're going to ship out the books to me, and also the ones that have to be shipped out to the backers on Kickstarter to my distributor. Will most likely happen in this next week. Finally done. Took forever, but everything that happened this year just delayed everything, as you can imagine. So I've been very thankful for people's patience, and that was a headache. What do you need to apply to art schools, and are they expensive? Extremely expensive. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're extremely expensive. Not even extremely, ludicrously expensive. Going into any sort of school, honestly, not even just art school. But what do you need? Obviously, some interest. Obviously, curiosity. A little bit of exposure to some of the fundamentals of just drawing. It's not on a level of like professionalism, but at least having done it to a certain degree of to whatever point of growth that you have. Um, Putting it together in a portfolio based on the requirements that the school will give you, and they'll obviously give you the list of requirements that you need to have. That's it. Apply, and hopefully, based on your work being good enough, and if you can afford it, do so. It was great, but it wasn't necessary. Yeah, a lot of classes you don't need. But that's what I said earlier too. Is like you can go and get what you do need and leave. You make the connections, you make the friends, and get out of there. How expensive are art schools? Well, I'll give you a. I mean, Kenny here can tell you too, but I mean, I've been teaching there for like I said, a decade. The school has gone up quite a bit. I'm talking about art centers specifically. I have my own personal thoughts as to even though it being that expensive, that it still has value. Um, but yeah, art center right now is a single term, I believe. A single term is 14 weeks. There are 3 terms in a year, and it ranges, I believe, about what 22,000 dollars a term. uh, yeah, scholarships, financial aid will help cut away that tuition, but that's only tuition. This is not living expenses. It's not materials. It's not daily spending. Here's the thing about that statement about German schools are free, and I understand, I know that, and especially a lot of European schools, and I've done like workshops in like Denmark and stuff like this, and all over Europe. And I know the education system, supports the people that are there, and it's great. It's fantastic for the people that are out there. Downside from what I've seen though, based on what people tell me, is that the problem is they know that they can actually jump from one discipline to another, so they don't fully commit to one thing because you're not pressed. You get as much as you can out of it. The level of seriousness compared to like someone who's paying for like 80 grand a year for a school, they're gonna take as much as they can out of it. Now again, the downside is you're paying 80 grand a year compared to a free education and it sounds so much better to get something free, but like I said, it becomes more of a relaxed moment, like, oh, I can take 10 years and just train what I want to do. I'm not saying that's going to be the case now, and I'm also very overgeneralizing, where I'm sure there are people out there that are hyper focused, and I've seen it, especially like in Eastern Europe, where there's a very traditional kind of schooling still. But like I said, that's what I've kind of noticed from what people tell me. I wouldn't necessarily say that's my observation, but it's based on what being in Europe and going to like workshops and talking to people. You might be right, Kenny. I'm not sure though. Again, I don't really necessarily have an exact idea of that. Are there any scholarships at Art Center? There are. I'm almost done here, so I'm kind of hatching and noodling away at this. So I'm pretty much close to this being. Zoom in a little bit closer to this so you can actually see up close. Kind of see a bit closer to some of the areas. Might overlap a couple of slight color transparency on top here. The overlays. I want to warm up the shell a little bit. wet, transparent. Bit of that kind of nice yellow to kind of warm that section up. Either way, in education, whether you're coming from Europe or in America, there are plus and minuses everywhere. The idea is that you have to at least commit to something and find out if it's for you or not, and give it enough time to really get a sense of it. And by then, you make a decision. Like you continue on or you move on to something else. And some people will stick through, and for even like Kenny over here, I'm glad you went all the way through and finished it. You have no regrets. Yeah, you can wish there was more thing of this or that, but you are doing what you want to do. You're working in the industry, so it paid off. For me, I don't regret art center at all either. Back when I went, I got so much out of it. Mostly the people, connections of friends. Right, we've been on for an hour and 40, and I'm gonna zoom out a little bit here now again. Question over here, Nolife is, have you heard about Focal Point School in Poland? I have actually. I've been to Poland a couple of times for an event festival out there. It was made by two concept artists, and I was thinking about taking their courses in the future. And yeah, I would recommend it. From what I've heard, it sounds pretty cool. Poland is an amazing, country and location as to where, especially as a hotbed for Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Russia, Poland, Bulgaria. There's some amazing concept artists coming from those areas and regions. And the level of hunger that I've seen from those people when I would do the workshops and talks and lectures out there last couple of years has always blown me away. The people out there are so hungry and invigorated and incredibly open and very nice, and again, like I said, driven to always seek more information. So having a school like that in Poland, I think it's a great thing. Appreciate that, Vortex. I'm glad you're here. We're only going to be on for maybe another 5-10 minutes because I'm relatively done and wrapped up. There's something else more. When you know when you're done is when you start to noodle at stuff. You start to like do these small little marks. When I start to do that, I know I'm done. There's one last thing I can do though. I want to make some spots and marks on the skin. Because the last thing I'm going to do and sign off here very soon. So if anybody else has any last couple questions, please do. I'm glad you guys were able to join, hang out for a little bit. Hopefully you were sketching and drawing. Hope that some of the questions, the answers, and advices on things were helpful to some degree. Understanding that, obviously I don't have the answer based on my thoughts and observations and opinion. Take it for, whatever degree you want to. And regardless of whatever I say, the idea is that you should just make your own choices, decisions, experience it yourself, find out, and you have a comparison. Oh yeah, it's great. Fantastic to see people over there side of the world. I've noticed it in several other places too. In Australia, I've actually seen a huge gain. A lot of interest. A lot of international people are going over there for some of the schools. And like I said, definitely Eastern Europe, Poland being one of the hotbeds for sure. Of course, you got that really great game studio out there, CD Projekt Red, and they've been doing amazing stuff, hiring so many of the people. It's awesome to see. So inspiring. And I love being out there. I've always wanted to still go to Krakow. Been to Warsaw several times, and we went. Woods is where we went to the events for. Really want to see Krakow. Do you think any average Joe can make it in the art business and getting better to get to the level you have attained? Yeah, I think I'm just an average Joe because I started off by just drawing basic things, dinosaurs and animals. But again, I've spent decades doing this. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm not some young kid. I got some age on me, so and even then, I feel like I have so much to learn. It's a never-ending pursuit. But it's if you had asked me if I'm in my 20s if I'm going to be this, professional in making it, I would have no answer for you. I probably would have said, I don't know, I don't think so, I'm not sure. But I would have felt a little bit inconfident. I was a bit insecure, very insecure when I was younger, very shy, extremely introverted. But I think a lot of people are naturally that way, as they're young, especially in art. But life just kind of takes you in that direction. hopefully based on good circumstances, good people around you, good encouragement, the right opportunities, it'll happen for you as well. Not a problem, Dragon. Appreciate that. Not a problem. And again, this is the last bit of strokes that I'm putting on right now. Next time we'll be on, most likely will be next week, and we're gonna shoot for I think a Tuesday. My classes are beginning to wrap up a little bit, so my Tuesday is kind of opening up. But I'll always announce it on my Instagram as to my stories is when I'm going online, live stream Twitch. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, please do so, and you'll find me posting it quite often and also announcing when I'll be doing live streams. Awesome. I wish, Kenny. You know that quote from Bilbo is like, you feel like butter spread across bread too thin. I'm not saying I feel tired, but I think, you know, when you look a certain way, people are like, oh, you look so young though. It's like, well, I'm getting old now, you know. Anyways, last question here from Vortex. As someone who at the moment has no way of having a teacher or some type of mentor to call out my errors, do you have any tips of self-policing yourself? I think the friends around you, you know, find people that also are interested in things you want to do. You know, get a community of artists and find them locally. Wherever you're living, there's got to be at least one other person that wants to do what you want to do, you know, and maybe it could be a friend of one of yours. And that's the start of it. And for me, when I was in high school, that was a way I established it. I had a good friend who I went to Art Center with. I brought him to Art Center, and we just drew together all the time during high school. We would, you know, go into diners and stay up at, like, you know, midnight, sketching and drawing, drinking soda, and that was what really helped me a lot, was having someone next to me. You can't do it by yourself, I agree. And if you can't find the right systems or schools or mentors, it's the person right next to you. It could be just a friend. And maybe they're not going to be interested in being a professional artist, but maybe they want to create in some other way. Find that, ask, and look for it. Expose yourself to different events, go to shows or galleries when they start to open up, and be a part of that. If you can't do it now physically, go online, you know, and see if you can find connecting people to like different social media groups or events. Look at the Concept Art Association. They do live events like once a month. They just do a live stream on Zoom, and people are drawing together and asking questions and talking and stuff just like this. You could be drawing right now and working together with other people here. So take advantage of these moments. At the very moment, you're here at the moment talking with me, talking with other people. So you should have been asking other people questions too. So use those. And wherever, again, like I said, you are, you might have something going on at the very moment, whether as a live stream or group events or actual, you know, online communities that are out there. Be a part of it. But you gotta take the initiative to look for it. You can't wait for someone to come to you. And once you do, it'll pay off because, like I said, you're now putting yourself in a position to find it. Okay, cool. Awesome, you guys. Well, thank you again for joining in. It was really fun sketching a little bit here. I'll be on probably next week at some point, and I'll announce it on my Instagram. So I'll see you guys at that point. You guys, thank you.